Hi, team. Today we're going to be discussing D Day and looking at how the Allied powers start to open up another front. We know from class that the United States and Great Britain have worked in North Africa together, gone through Sicily, and are currently working up the coastlines in Italy. At the same time, the Soviets are coming in from the east. Now we have to think about how do we liberate our allies? How do we free France? And how are we going to do it in a way that's going to minimize casualties and finally be successful? Because we know that previously, the Canadians and the British have tried to liberate France, and they've unfortunately failed. So the plan is called Operation Overlord, and this is the planning meeting that happened in Cairo, December 4th to December 6th of 1943. You can see all the major players who were here, but General Eisenhower is going to be the one in charge. He's the supreme commander of the Allied powers, and he is the one who's going to be calling the shots and making the decisions on when this actually happens. When they start planning, they think that it's going to be May of 1944 that this attack is going to happen. Some of the things that they're going to be thinking about is like, what is the target? What area of France is most important? The target's going to be the Normandy beaches. It's going to be important they come under the cover of night across the English Channel and that they have good weather. When we think about the actual date of when D Day happens, weather is going to be the deciding factor as the day that it actually happens. D Day, the D in D Day stands for day, because while they originally planned for it to be in May, the final plan is going to be from June 4th to June 6th. And because there's a storm June 4th and June 5th, there's a small opening in the evening going into June 6th, and that's when Eisenhower is going to make the call, because we need to have like just a little bit of a lull in that storm. We're going to be attacking 5 different beaches, which you looked at in your homework assignment. We codenamed them, the ones listed there: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword. Omaha, the most famous, primarily Americans fighting there, and we're able to secure these beachheads in just a little over a day. Some of that success comes from our paratroopers, using our Air Force and dropping paratroopers behind enemy lines so that they can minesweep and look for, use their maps, create materials that would be necessary for us to continue moving through France and eventually into Belgium. We're going to be using duck boats and Hagen boats as we start to enter the beaches. We know that Hitler has fortified those beaches, so it's going to be important that we have vehicles that can transfer from the sea to land. And the duck boats, you might be thinking of like duck tours that you've been on either in Boston or another major city. The boat is going to be the most famous. It's a flat bottom boat that's going to be used to transport most of our troops, especially in the first wave. We'll talk about their benefits in a second when we look at the obstacles. The reason why this is going to be successful is because we use decoys. We are going to watch a video called Operation Bodyguard, where we're going to look at how deception played a role in not only Italy, but in our success in D Day. Using um, real plans, actually giving the Germans the real plans that we would be attacking in Normandy and leaving it in a boat that would be accessible to the Germans. When Hitler comes across them, he just doesn't think they're real. He thinks that they're being played again, and he doesn't trust them. So we have been preparing at Calais. Across in Great Britain over by Dover, we've been preparing with rubber tanks and fake airplanes and establishing a military there to look like we are organizing ourselves and getting ready to actually make this attack in the most northern part here in the screen, at Calais. But the reality is, we're going to be coming from 5 different ports in Britain and attacking at these 5 different beaches. This might play for us for a second. I'm going to skip. Excuse me. All right. So Eisenhower. Eisenhower knows that this is dangerous. Eisenhower knows that most of the people who are fighting, especially in this first wave, they're most likely going to die. The casualties are going to be very high. And so Eisenhower takes the time to address the troops himself. He tells them that the eyes of the world are upon you. The entire world is watching this. They're wondering when the Allies are going to strike, when they're going to be able to try to liberate the French. He knows that what he's asking of them is not easy, that he's going to require a lot of sacrifice, but he knows that these troops are up for it. He trusts them, he believes in them, and he knows that this act will not go unforgotten, and it will not be without great benefit for the Allied powers to continue this fight. So on June 6th of 1944, the Allied powers are going to be reaching the German defenses, starting with the Atlantic Wall. The Atlantic Wall has taken about 2 years to build by Hitler and the German forces. And if you look at the image, it spans all of the yellow highlight. So it's about 2,000 miles long, and 80 miles of that stretch is off the French coastline. It's concrete bunkers with guns, fortresses, tank traps, everything that you could imagine. And we'll continue with this in the next slide in a couple of seconds, okay? Have a great night.